I'm going to start with unpublished poems, and mostly earlier work. I think a lot of my early stuff I don't have. Um, so none of this is ancient history. Um, but some of it is from 20 years ago or longer. Um, so I'm going to start with this poem, Cancer of the Heart. Um, True story. Cancer of the Heart. As I was crossing the cemetery lawn, the grass so green it almost seemed fake, I found a firecracker. My guess is one of the neighborhood boys, taking a shortcut, got a little spooked and dropped it, or it fell out of his pocket. When I was young, firecrackers would come packaged in long red industrial zippers, the gray fuses braided together. Sometimes I would dare myself to hold one as long as I could, as the spark devoured the fuse. Now I pick it up to smell the cordite, the way a smoker who can't quite quit might smell a cigarette before lighting it. I think that's a nice introduction to my work, the way it works. Little story. It's about something kind of nostalgia, maybe. Yeah. And, there's rhyme, there's rhythm, there's imagery. You fell into the room. You fell into the room, like someone newly arrived from the satisfaction of the senses, dissolute, wild-eyed, filled with a frantic surprise. Or perhaps, having just run out of beer and cigarettes, your clothes hastily rearranged, your hair an anxious mess, voluptuous, prodigal, surprised, to find yourself intruding on some sort of well-intentioned and serious discussion concerning the application of democratic principles to economic problems. And so, backing away, while mumbling excuses under your breath, you hit your elbow on the door jamb, swore, spilled your coffee on the floor, convinced that the sooner you left, the better it would fare for all concerned. Your bloodshot green eyes, mostly shadowed by the curtain of your hair. Yeah, I think this is about a lot of things. But it's about the untamable, in a way, and that it's based on someone I know and how the serious world having serious discussions, and there's this intrusion. Yeah. And that intrusion is perhaps more interesting and important than the discussion. Fortitude. How can I withstand the spring? How can I withstand the fulsome croaking of the thing, the wet whistling through the hairless branches, an imperceptible beckoning on the tips of the tree fingers? I will let them scratch my face, leaving green grass-stained traces of things that are to be, and yet are not yet seen by me. Yeah, clearly, the music really carries everything else here. This is a really old poem, one of the oldest probably in this collection. Um, and it's just about how nature is teeming, and yet at the same time just out of our reach. How spring is, it's always spring in a way. And how it's part of us but still apart from us, I think. Oh, here's another old one from the French. I am always drunk on the ceiling, revising splendid loves, engraving rhymes in my course, these good September evenings, where I smell gutturals of rose at my feet, like a vinegar wine growling in a milieu of fantastic shadow. This poem is I used to do this occasionally, where I would take a poem I love, in this case a poem by Rimbaud, and I would look at the French, at the sound of the French, and transform it into something else. So this is a Rimbaud poem transformed into a poem, a different poem, which is why it's called From the French. Oh, this is a very well, we'll see what this is. Local news. The meteorologist wonders how much longer he will have to work at this small market station. After all, he has a master's degree in communications, runs 5 miles a day, and lists among his interests fine wines and military history. He bought his suit from the European style section of the Men's Warehouse. It cost him more than a week's pay. He can't really afford it, just as he can't really afford to go out drinking after work. But he has never made friends that easily, and he doesn't want to give the false impression, that he is here to stay. Instead, he tries to improve himself each evening by reading A Course in Miracles by Marianne Williamson, trying desperately to align his attention with the intention of the universe. But no matter how hard he concentrates, there are still restless nights when he cannot erase the primordial image of his best friend's little brother's face, who was pulled from Sawyer's Pond after he fell through the ice and died somewhere down there in the unforgivable cold dark unseen, scrambling to find his way back to the place from where he had fallen. And how the white face mask, the eyes wide open, the bruised lips parted, as if to ask what it was that he did that was so wrong. So that suddenly the air around him was replaced by ice-cold water and a violent heaviness that wrestled him down into the patient, sinister quiet that waits for everyone at the bottom of ponds. It gives the weatherman nightmares and is part of him to this day, even as he smiles and points professionally at the map and explains that the clouds on Friday will give way to intermittent showers. Yeah. I'm fascinated by um, how can by this reality that you just don't know um, what what someone's unconscious history is. What what did they experience? What made them who they are? That is deep inside them, and especially people at the most superficial level, like someone like a TV weatherman. Um, and um, I guess that's all I'll say. There's obviously there's a lot going on there. Sort of the culture, the way culture tries to cure us of this paradox. Um, with self help, um, when it and sort of petty ambition and all that, and yet the truth is that there's a quiet at the bottom of ponds. This is a really old one. This poem I remember started, gosh, I might have even been in high school, lying on my back. We had a little um, uh, like a depression in our backyard that would fill with ice, and you could skate on it. And I remember one winter lying on my back and staring up at the sky on the ice. Winter weaving its exact form. I am free in a weather of sounds, walking around the midnight neighborhood, the slightly smudged evening repose of snow upon the ground, sounds too barren to be seen, soft shoeing along the ground, sizzling snow sawing through the air, and dangling fire from the arthritic fingers of trees. I would like to slide my hand in where it is both cold and warm. Let a little moon alight on my fingers, the Latin patter of the way things are together. Winter curling up inside the moon, like a scallop-shaped knife, a crescent shaving, floating on the deep dark evening tide. But I am as witless as it is winter outside, and chastened to a rigorous affectation. As I walk, there is not a whiteness that does not sound, that does not hasten all the medium attractors around, driving them face first into the ground. Among the decaying winter relics, there in the purplish spectrum there, in the flaming of shadows, there is not an object lost or found. Poetry is not a place, a moment that takes off gingerly on its own, not a momentary silence, not a sound. This is a this is a fun poem about to come your way. Um, it's problematic. I'll admit that. It's based on an actual old English poem called World's Bliss. And the idea is to fuse religious and sexual imagery, um, and it's got sort of a Baudelairian, um, decadent kind of evil element to it. Um, yeah, and I think an easy interpretation is to say there's something deeply wrong with me, but you know, I write them as I see them. What can I say? World's Bliss. All the world's bliss does not last as long as when you sleep your sweet and dirty sleep, as when you molest me in your way, in your proud and filthy way, as when you lick the honey from the horn, as when you redeem me with your sweet blood, inventing reincarnations for me, as if I had to be reborn, as if there were a secret that we keep, hidden like a crucifix under the pillow, your greasy hair smeared against the pillow, your hand broken over your head, more like one who is sleeping than one who is dead, gutted and splayed in the gluttony of this, my casualty, my discarded wish, oh, fair monster of my kiss. Yeah, it's an adult poem, and I think sex and death are intertwined, and there's a monstrosity to sex, and all that sort of comes together there. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm willing to be judged. This is called Hunter-Gatherers. Hunter-gatherers. You get to kill things all the time, so that the pressure of the fake real, the family cheer, fullness, exposing more of that strange circular structure, doesn't force a smile. You have to think of something to pretend to survive. I don't think that's a very good poem, but I think it's about how we're sort of cavemen, but we're civilized. But civilized is such a pretense, and I don't know. I'm not gonna waste too much time with that. I think this is kind of a fun one. Right. I remember I wrote this, probably close to 30 years ago. Dog. You buy a dog for all the wrong reasons. You buy it to look cool. You buy it because chicks dig it. You buy it because life is shit. And maybe if you have a dog, you won't drink so much. The dog is not aware of any of these reasons. The dog is afraid of you, but wags his tail anyway. The dog wants to go outside. The dog is desperate. The dog needs to pee. So there you are at 5:30 a.m. on the corner of Perry Street and Bleecker, in your $2,000 suit, in your $400 shoes, holding a leash while your dog urinates against the no parking sign. Based on a true story, I saw this guy. He was miserable. Dog was miserable. He was wearing very expensive clothes in the Greenwich Village, where there's lots of nice places and lots of not so nice places, and he seemed really uncomfortable. He didn't really seem to care for the dog. The dog didn't really seem to care for him. Yeah. I think maybe I'll end on this one. Dr. Seuss. Dr. Zeus. I'm going to set you an impossible task. I'm going to ask. I am. My name is not my name. My name is not the task. I am not going to ask you my name. The task is not impossible. What? I ask. This is about so many things. This may be too personal. Obviously, it's about Dr. Seuss because it's kind of a little Dr. Seuss poem, but it's also about religion, sort of the idea of commandment and mystery, and we all serve some higher power, and that can be problematic, mysterious, maybe even meaningless. But yes, I think that'll be it for this first batch.